Yo, Semantic. Man, I'm back. Season 2. Like I said on the previous video, I have, a bunch of videos that I just haven't posted. In fact, I've just been busy. I'm actually getting ready to go to Indiana. I have a 4-hour drive to Indiana. I said on the other video, I've been just doing a lot of traveling, and I just haven't really said anything. But, periodically I'll listen. But, one thing that it just hit me one day. I said, well, we as black people, and, this is in general, but, we tend to operate on ourselves individually first, family second, and community third. Whereas other races, they tend to work the opposite. They work community first, family second, and individually third. But, they do focus on family as well as community, but community is definitely a top priority. And what I mean by that, when you look at the women and how things are set up and how, of course, they have a patriarchal system set up, it's evident. I was watching John Adams, the HBO movie John Adams. It's like a 7-part series. It talks about the second president of the United States, first vice president of the United States, John Adams, right? One of the advocates of the Declaration of Independence. So one thing that was said on that movie that stood out to me, he said, well, when he went to France, of course, and he's sitting at the table with Benjamin Franklin, and all of these women were just talking about sex and shit like that. He made the comment. He says, I focus on politics and focus on economics and warfare so that my children can focus on agriculture, mathematics, and engineering, so that their children can focus on art and poetry and music and shit like that, right? So when he said it, I immediately thought about black people. I was like, wow, we are completely the opposite, because, you see a lot of people, especially in the black sector, they focus on music. I mean, this goes way back. This goes back to, I would say maybe the late 1800s, maybe the early 1900s, even though we were educated, we still, like to party, we were into the arts and things. But I mean, it's gotten bad now, because everybody wants to be a model, everybody wants to be a rapper, everybody wants to be a producer, everybody wants to be important. And when you watch their children, and I mean, I see this quite often, when you look at a lot of these black women and black men, you look at their children, because some of these guys, they want to get into sports and basketball and football, things like that, but they want their children to become architects and engineers and scientists and doctors and lawyers and shit like that. Even the rappers, it's like, they're rapping so that their kids can focus on agriculture, science, and STEM. And like, where's the example? And it's no wonder why a lot of the children, they tend to fall short. I mean, minus the fact that you still have fatherless homes with a lot of households that are black, especially when you go to the inner cities. But for the most part, it's like, I'm going to be the fucking rapper, I'm going to be the basketball player, and you're going to be the scientist. You're going to school to be a doctor and shit like that. I don't want you to grow up the same way that I grew up, type shit. We need to set better examples. Yeah, I realize how divided the community is, and sometimes I want to give up. Sometimes, like, I've actually took a trip out to the Philippines, and I have a lot of Filipino friends out there. Majority of them are women, and I met them when I worked at the bank. Actually, they actually work at their site at the bank. So I've been knowing a few of these women for a while, and even with these women, it's like it was amazing to see that some of these women actually went to college. And, even with their parents, but you got to think again, like the Philippines is a damn near. That's my dryer. Good. We have a little silence in here now. I guess those clothes are done. That batch is done, so I can fold them up and put them away, so I can get the fuck out of here. So, it was just strange, just listening to them because I understand that the Philippines as a country, it's damn near a third world country. Some may argue that it is a third world country, but it's the same scenario. A lot of the women that I know there, and some of the guys as well, it's like they went to college. Their parents were poor. Their parents worked hard so that they were able to get a better education. But with us, it's like, for the most part, just going to various cities, we want to take the easy way out, especially when you go to Atlanta. I mean, damn, it is crazy down there. Everywhere you go in Atlanta, you go to Lithonia, you go to Decatur, you go to Marietta, which is where my brother stays, um, you go to Roswell, Florida. I'm not Florida. Roswell, Georgia. You see all of these motherfuckers that live in these apartments, and they go to downtown Atlanta. They go to various places to promote their music. Some women I know that are models there. They're going there to promote themselves, and some of them have kids, and they're very strict on their kids about education. And I'm telling them, I'm thinking to myself, like, I mean, your kids are going to emulate you. They're going to basically see what you do. And when they get to a certain age, I mean, if they're not there, because you can't really chastise them too much when they get older. I mean, they're going to say, well, hey, Mom, you made the same mistakes. So I say, fortunately, with my little sister, my little sister now, she's 31 years of age. And she set an example that my mom didn't set for us because my sister always makes the argument that, hey, I had my kid when I was 25, and you started having kids when you were 18, addressing to my mom, which we pride ourselves. My little brother and my sister and I, we pride ourselves on a lot of things because unfortunately, like other relatives, they've been in and out of jail, especially like, the generation before us. They got into a lot of trouble. They've shown us bad examples, and we tended to use those examples and made a few changes. So I don't want to really get too personal on it. I just find it strange that, I mean, man, I met a rapper when I went to Atlanta, and he's a very known rapper as well. Actually, I knew him when I stayed in New Orleans, and we ended up chopping it up. And just the same thing with him. Like his two daughters and his son, like he's on them very, very hard about education and getting a job and eventually working for somebody else. And I had to explain to him, like, hey man, you can't be so hard on these kids, man. I mean, granted, nobody was hard on you, but if somebody was hard on you, would you have become a doctor or a lawyer? And if you were being put under the same restrictions that your children are put under, would you be like that? And he had to think about it for a while. He says, well, you know what, I probably would have a bit of rebellion. I said, well, that is exactly what I'm talking about, man. You just have to make them understand what the importance is and let them understand what's going on. And I do that with a lot of children. I learn where they are mentally because he actually let me sit down and talk to his kids as well, and it's been a very, very good thing. I've been talking to a lot of like younger kids and just realizing where they are mentally, and then I'm able to kind of like stoop down to their level and still give them the respect as a child and talk to them like an adult, but in a form where they're able to understand what I'm saying. So it's not like, oh, like I'm talking to like 10-year-olds, and I'm like, no, you can't do that. No, I talk to them. And my niece actually learned that from my 10-year-old niece. Like I've been talking to her like this since she was able to speak. I found out where she was mentally, and I mean she is very, very intelligent, very beautiful. Like she tells me a lot. Like she's a very beautiful girl. Like she's she is African American and Korean, but she's dark skinned. You can tell that she has Korean in her because of her eyes and things like that. But she tells me that boys at her school want to date her, and I'm like, well, I explained to her, like, you're starting off early. I already know, like, because she's very sociable. All the kids like her at school. The teachers like her. She's very smart, very intelligent. She's very articulate. And, I try to, tell her, what, definitely balance yourself out because, as you get older, you're going to have girls who hate you because, she is a beautiful girl. She doesn't wear any weave. She has good hair. And then on top of that, my sister is a hairdresser, so you can imagine, like, she never goes to hair with her hair nappy. Her hair is always done. And a lot of the boys that at the school, they have a crush on her. And I didn't want to really be too harsh on the boys, but I explained to her, how boys are raised when they only have a mother who's raising them versus having two parents in the household. So, and I spoke to it on the level where she can understand. Like, even though you're raised by your mother as well, you have two older brothers, or not two older brothers, but you have two uncles. You have two uncles that, you can reach out to at any time. And she has her own cell number. My mom bought her a cell number. We're able to monitor what she does. And, whenever she has any questions, like, she'll ask you. She definitely looks up to me and my little brother. And, we spend a lot of time with her. We treat her like she's our daughter because we don't have any children. So, there's just no excuse for her not to fall into the same trap. And even with her mother, her mother never fell into the trap because we had a stepfather who, was there for my, for my sister, my little sister's biological father. Even though he didn't do the right things all the time, he was still there. And, fathers, they tend to treat their daughters a little different than how they treat their sons. It's like, well, as far as the son, hey, go out there and, spread your world, soil them, fuck around with all the girls you want, and they pounding them, giving them a pound on the back. But when their daughter gets fucked, it's like, oh shit, and here comes the shotguns. But, with my niece, I told her, just understand because I know how women are, they grow up faster, they tend to mature a little faster. So, she'll be out, she'll be more sociable. And I tell my mom that as well because my mom stays in Thibodaux, Louisiana. She stays in the country, whereas my sister stays actually in New Orleans, which is about an hour and a half away from Thibodaux. So my mom has this big house out there, and she moved there after the storm, and I mean the house is immaculate, but my niece likes to go out there, to get away and shit, to, kind of like spend time with her grandmother. And I told my mom, there's going to be a time, and it's coming very soon, there's going to be a time where she is not going to, see her granddaughter, on weekly visits out there or bi-weekly visits. There's going to be times where, she wants to live in the city. She wants to stay in the city and hang out with her girlfriends, So I'm actually preparing them both for this. But, a lot of the kids, I'm starting to realize how intelligent they are. These kids are, very, very smart. I mean, I've gotten kids into, learning more about animals. And, one 8-year-old girl, actually, she has an older sister as well. Her older sister was 12. And, both of these girls, like, I look at them as though they were my own. It's like the daughters that I've never had. Because, they ask questions and, they talk about science, especially the little 8-year-old girl. I was like, man, this girl is awesome. And, she has her mother and her father stays with them as well. Actually, it's her stepfather. Her real father, sends her money every month, and, actually, both of the girls, neither one of them have the same father. But her mother is a smart woman now. She's finally come around. She's like 29 years of age, but she asked me to take and kind of like mentor her daughters. So I've gotten a chance to talk to them a lot, and I've actually given them a couple of boa constrictors, baby boa constrictors to take care of because I didn't know that they were so interested in animals. They were catching frogs and shit like that. I was like, man, So I hit them on the snakes and, because they have that intelligence. And, unfortunately, my niece doesn't have that. She's like, one of those pretty girls who's afraid of animals and she's afraid of snakes, things like that. But, she's very, very smart on what's going on in the world. And, as far as like her having, people at her school who have a crush on her, I'm like, be very, very careful of who you deal with, because, those guys who don't have mothers in the house, they really are not going to be as productive as a man who is in the house raising them. So she gets it. So I mean, and she tells me, like, she went back and she spoke to one of the boys and asked him, does your father stay in the house? And the boy said no. And then my sister told me that, my niece kind of like got upset with the boy, and was kind of rude to him and shit. Made the boy feel some kind of way, because his father wasn't in the house. And I was kind of upset as well. I was a little proud. It's almost like, your daughter having a fight outside, and you see her, whipping somebody's ass, whipping the other girl's ass, or you have your nephew outside whipping somebody's ass, and you're like, bring your ass in here, and then you're smiling at him like, what the fuck are you doing? But then you laugh like, yeah, man, good job. It's like some shit like that. So we need to take and kind of like set an example at the same time, and not be so strict on these kids. Because like I say again, white folks, other races of men, they work hard, they do the best that they can. They're not focused on the arts. They are focused on infrastructure. They're focused on economics, so that their kids can focus on, something that is intricate but not as hard as what they're doing. So the kids will focus on engineering, mathematics, science, and their children can have fun. And I mean, that's what it's all about. It's all about passing something down from generation to generation. And we just do the complete opposite, and it's terrible. So like I said, community first, family second, and individuality third. But that's my ice chest right there. I'm gonna have to put that in the car. But it's crazy. It's like we are the complete opposite. And when we talk about individuality, putting that first, I mean, you see that even with the rap, because I had the same conversation with this rapper in Atlanta. The same conversation. I mean, just look at the music that we have available now. Everybody's talking about me. Look what I got. I got this. I got that. I got money. I got cars and all this shit, and you don't have this, you don't have what I have. And, going back to, I forget his name, but, one guy was on YouTube, and he said, I only focus on my mom and my wife. I don't fuck with anybody else. I don't give a fuck about these black women. I don't give a fuck about the community. All that. And I mean, a lot of, people are like that. People who live in the outskirts, people who live in the suburbs, it's the same thing, But then at the same time, like I said, they get upset when they watch the news and they see, this black man was killed in the inner city, there was a robbery that happened, and they're like, oh, these black people, they're embarrassing us, they make us look bad. Yeah, they make you look bad around those white folks when you go to work the next day, and they're asking like, man, did you see what happened in the news? You feel embarrassed. You feel embarrassed because your community is fucked up, So, I know I know a lot of these people in the suburbs know that other races focus on community first, because it's an embarrassment. Of course you want your community to be on top. You want your people to be first. So, it's kind of like a double standard. It's like, damn, like, why the fuck don't they do it? And at the end of the day, they feel embarrassed and shit. And, they want to take and point the finger. So, like I said, all this individuality shit first, I understand where it comes from. It comes from having the lack of resources and living in poverty. And, definitely, they want to focus on them and make sure that their families are together. And then, eventually focus on the community, if they even focus on the community, because I mean, even in the community itself, I have seen a lot of fuckery. What I explained in the previous video about, some of the black businesses that I've come across, some black restaurants that I've come across, especially in the black community, and how they operate. It's just a bit weird, but eventually I hope that definitely eventually we get our shit together. But I have definitely been in the trenches, working hard to do it, make sure that things were done. Make sure I spread the message physically, and make sure that I am definitely showing some action. So, just kind of like keep an eye out, I guess. Put your notifications up. I have a few videos that I might post here and there that I've done. But I promise I'll keep it more consistent this time. But I'm going to go ahead and fold these clothes up so I can go ahead and hop in my whip and get on this highway. And you guys be safe, be cool, and be productive as well. Sam, peace.